Today I would like to talk about mental magic, and it's important to recognize that all magic is mental magic. And when we do spells, oftentimes we use tools and we use symbols that are very powerful. And we try to construct our spells using symbols in a very careful manner so that we can make sure that we are leaning into the symbols within our own deep mind and within the mind of the species, also known as the Akashic records, in order to get the best results possible. But the tools are helpful because they help us to get our minds focused. They help us to keep track of what we're doing, so that when we are working with magical concepts and planting those ideas deep in our minds, we can do so very thoughtfully using those very powerful symbols. However, the problem that we have is that those tools devolve very easily into superstition, and then that's when magic becomes the opposite of powerful. We worry that that the spell itself has power, or that the incense has power, or the knife has power, or the puppet, or whatever it is, has power. And they do have power, but only to the degree that they represent an idea in our mind. So it's helpful to occasionally strip everything back and understand what the nuts and bolts of the process of casting a spell are in the mind, so that when we return to our tools, we do so mindfully. And also it enables us to start working magic sometimes without tools, which can be helpful if we are in situations where we don't have tools available to us, or where we just can't get something going together on an altar, or whatever it is that we're using, however we're using our tools. All right. So the first thing that you need when you're casting any kind of a spell is you need to have your body and mind relaxed and focused. That's probably the most important thing. So regardless of whether you're using tools or not, the first thing you need to do is ground and center, and then establish a sense of a witch's trance. So we give you a lot of different tools for that in the different classes that I offer. The Orb of Light, I have a meditation called the Witch's Trance. There are many ways to enter into this trance state in a very protected, magical way. When you're working on this Witch's Trance, it's very important that you realize that several things are happening. First of all, your body is relaxing. Your physical body is relaxing. You're allowing those muscles to relax. You're allowing your nervous system to be at ease. You are allowing the mental shield to come down, all of your defenses to come down. And if you think about it, in the world, we have our defenses up because this is a world of defensiveness. This world as we know it, this mortal world as we know it, is held in place by tension, and tension is always a type of defense. And so if you're defensive while you're working magic, then you're going to short circuit yourself. It's like you're putting up a block or a wall that makes things very, very difficult for you to imprint that mind with what you desire. And remember that deep mind is not only connected to you, it's connected to everything and everyone, because there is only one mind. So as you allow your shield to go down, as you allow your defenses to fall down, and you are entering into a protected space, that's why we always like to use either a circle or an orb of light or some kind of a vehicle or means of protection, so that we can feel safe in relaxing. We can feel safe in letting our guard down. We can feel safe in letting all those defenses down, because we know that we're protected. That's the way that you get into a state of mind whereby you can drop those ideas into your deep mind, so that they actually come about. It's also a way that you can do things like contact the deep mind of the species. You can work with angels. You can work with deities. You can work with all kinds of things that are outside of the waking consciousness by allowing those defenses to drop down. So all kinds of magic, whether it's practical magic, whether it's path working, whether it's astral travel, no matter what kind of magic you're doing, telepathy, psychic development, all requires that those defenses be dropped. And that's a discipline. And you want to do that no matter what. You want to do work on that every single day. And there's, like I said, there's many different versions of that depending on the courses that you take that we offer, or you may find that you have another way of doing things that you like. But just allowing yourself to increase the time every day that you're capable of keeping those defenses down, that you're capable of staying within that trance and keeping relaxed, and deepening the experience each and every time so that you become more and more adept at getting those defenses to just relax and stay down, and that you can relax more and more into that deep mind. And that is how you also gain in power. Okay, so that's the first step, is you always want to be able to have your witch's trance established, and you want that deep, deep relaxation. Now, even if you never did anything else, even if that day you didn't have any magic that you wanted to do, doing just that trance state work every single day has a cumulative effect on your ability to work magic and to be intuitive. There's so many benefits also on your health. Just imagine how wonderful that is for your nervous system and for your emotional well-being, to have that break every single day from the mortal world, where no longer do you need to defend yourself, no longer do you need to have your guard up, and that for a few moments that you are, even maybe 10, 15 minutes a day, you are capable of feeling that you are very safe, very protected, and very, very relaxed and at peace. So even if you aren't going to use that state for something magical or practical, working on it every day is good for you. It's good for you because it increases your ability to do it, so that when you do need to work magic, you're much more powerful. And it also has uncountable benefits in your life, both physically, emotionally, and spiritually. Okay, so that's one thing, the witch's trance, mastering that witch's trance, working on it every single day. Then there's the ability to visualize. Now, a lot of people get really hung up on this ability to visualize. They think that it has to look a certain way. And a lot of teachers do a disservice to their students by telling them it has to be a certain way. It should look like, you should be able to have the same image before you in your mind as when you open your eyes, or something like that. And remember, though, that not everybody is geared the same way as everyone else. So this is what I recommend. And many of you probably have heard me talk about this before. When you're visualizing, when you're learning how to visualize what you want, creating an image of what you desire, read a book, read a fictional book, especially a child's story or a fairy tale or something that's very visual, or listen to a story, have someone tell you a story, or tell somebody else a story. Just get some storytelling going on, and reading a book is the easiest way to do it. And just notice when you're reading the book, or when you're listening to the story, just notice how in your mind you put yourself in the scene. And that's how you visualize. That's how you visualize. That will do so much more for you as far as enabling you to visualize than doing these boring, difficult visualization exercises where you must now visualize a red candle. You must now visualize a blue circle. You must now... those are fine. If you really respond to that kind of thing, go for it. Those sort of almost clinical exercises that many people say that are so important, which I find that a lot of people just check out when it's time to do those, because they're not meaningful. What does a blue circle have to do with anything? That you have no desire for a blue circle, so you're not going to do that. But if you read a book or you listen to a story, your ability to visualize that story becomes enhanced each and every time you listen to a story or read a book. So reading those fairy tales or Greek myths or anything like that, something especially that has lots of visuals, that's really easy to follow, that's not too intellectually challenging, that just allows you to get into the flow of a story. That does more for you to get your visualization going than anything else. That's why my quote that used to be real popular back when I did a lot of fairy tale work, and we'll do it again, is a fairy tale a day keeps the magic in play. A fairy tale a day keeps the magic in play. And it's not always just fairy tales that do that. Any kind of story, any kind of thing that gets your ability to visualize moving, that's the best way. That's my particular recommendation for how to fast track your ability to visualize. And that also shows you how you visualize. If what you're visualizing in your spell looks similar to the way you visualize when you hear a story, you know you're doing it right. You know everything is cool. But if you think that it's supposed to look a certain way because somebody told you, oh no, if you can't visualize from this perspective and that perspective and this and that and the other thing, that it's not going to work for you, then you're always going to think, I can't visualize. You're always going to think, I can't do this. My magic will never be powerful enough because I can't do it. I just can't. When in reality, you do just fine. You know exactly what to do. You were given the abilities to visualize just like everybody else. But the way you perceive it, the way you understand it may be different than the way other people describe it. So the way to discover what that is listen to stories, not watch stories. This is very important. If you're watching a TV program, or you're watching a video, or you're watching a video game, or you're doing something where the images are already provided for you, then that part of the mind is not operating. So I'm not saying don't watch TV or don't watch movies. I'm just saying that that's not a substitute for what we're talking about. You must either read it or have it told to you, because you have to be able to create those images for you. But that will happen spontaneously on its own as a result of you working with stories. So the more you do that, the better you become at visualizing. Now, when you can then use that same power of visualization in your spell work to see that which you desire, you're there. Okay? So the ability to visualize. Yes, you can. Yes, you can visualize. It may not seem like a visualization because someone told you it must look just like a movie or something like that. It does not have to look just like a movie. It's going to look like what it looks like for you when you visualize. And so get those stories. Read a fairy tale, read a Greek myth. It doesn't have to be a long one, or listen to an audiobook that has a lot of visuals, especially children's stories, fairy stories, or mythology. Those are the kinds of stories that usually are the best for this particular kind of work that we're doing. Okay, so you've got your witch's trance, and then you've got your ability to visualize. Now, the next step is probably the most important one of all. They're all important. You want to get all these going, but without this next one, your effectiveness really is not that great. You have to be able to conjure the emotion. You have to be able to conjure the emotion of the outcome you desire. So with your ability to visualize, you have to be able to see the outcome that you desire. And we always say, just take a little teeny bit of that, just a little visualization, and that you can repeat on a loop around and over and over and over again. And when you're doing that, it's a good idea if it's something that proves that it's already happened. For instance, somebody's congratulating you on the job that you got, or somebody's or the doctor's as your doctor is saying, oh, the test came back negative, or whatever it is. It's not a visualization of you going in through the process of doing or having or being this thing. It's already occurred in your mind. And the same goes with the emotion. It's the emotion that you will have once this thing has already happened. It is an established fact. Think of the feeling of that. So if it's a health spell, think of the relief of hearing your doctor tell you that. or feel the elation of getting that promotion, what that's going to feel like. And then you conjure that feeling as you see this loop in your mind over and over and over again within this trance state. So you've got to be able to do that. You've got to be able to conjure images and conjure emotions. And those also, the emotions are usually a little easier for people than the visualizations for them to do. But that's another thing you can get better at by reading and by listening to stories and by telling stories. Those emotions that you learn how to conjure them when you're in the midst of a story. When you're in the midst of like a spell casting process, when you're in the midst of like in a circle and you're doing this, you've got that trance state going, you've got those images looping around, and you're really conjuring the emotions that prove to you that this thing has already happened. Usually then we want some sort of focus or concentration. And when I mean concentration, I don't mean that you're concentrating. I mean that you're actually consolidating the energy. You're concentrating into a smaller focus. And we do that by actually seeing a ball of energy starting to form that represents the consolidation of your visualization, your emotion, your intention, all having happened. You're all consolidating, and we allow it to be the color of whatever we think is appropriate for our desire. Maybe green for money, or maybe pink for love, maybe white for protection, maybe purple for a court case, whatever it is, based on the correspondences that you understand. If you don't understand color correspondences, any of our courses pretty much, the Witch's Primer, Witchcraft Beyond the Basics, the Angel Magic, they all have color correspondences, so you can learn those, so that you're also not only just doing your own color correspondences, but you're learning what some of the more traditional color correspondences are, so that you can also lean into the power of the Akashic records, meaning that anybody who's ever worked magic using those colors, you're leaning into their success as well. So you're not just depending on your own energy now, you're plugging into the cosmic energy of everybody that's ever had success doing these kinds of things. So now you're actually consolidating a ball of energy, a ball of light, which is in your mind very clearly the composition of that emotional energy that you've been conjuring, plus the visuals that you've been conjuring. And then you allow that thought form to do whatever it needs to do. For some of us, most of the time I just have it move up and out, and I see it floating out like a hot air balloon, or like a balloon going out, because I'm very clear that it's been programmed and knows exactly where to go and what to do, so I can release it to the causal plane, and I have absolute certainty that it's going right to its objective and doing everything that it needs to do to attract all of the circumstances and the people and the resources necessary for this thing to come about. For some of those thought forms, you might actually have them stay in your home, like a protection kind of thing. You might, instead of having it move out, you might have it stay and encompass the entire dwelling. Or maybe if you're using some sort of if you're not doing purely mental magic, if you're using a charm, you might actually ground that thought form into the charm itself, a charm bag or an amulet or a piece of jewelry or something like that, right? But if it's purely mental, usually you're just going to project it and release it out into the causal plane and allow it to do its work, or you're going to have it stay within a particular place because it's doing something like protecting or whatever. Okay, and then your job is to do something that can be very challenging at first. Your job is to not care, to have this feeling of detachment, of like, I really want this to happen. I really know this is going to happen, but I'm not worried about it. I don't really care anymore. I just know this is all fine. And you just sort of forget about it. You just leave it alone. But at the same time, when you're going about your day-to-day work after you're out of the trance and things like that. At the same time, even though you're forgetting about it and letting it do its work, if negative thoughts come up, if negative thoughts around that topic come up about, oh, this isn't going to work or whatever, you need to have something there at the ready to take care of them. So I would have some sort of a thought, some sort of an affirmation or prayer or chant of some sort at the ready, just to combat any of those old ghosts or those old weeds or those old pests that are inevitably going to come up to try to squash the success of this, but those things that are coming up are actually coming up to get released. So the way you handle those is not by allowing those things to start to take hold again in your mind, but by addressing them with whatever this is. For instance, if you have done a spell to pay off all of your credit cards, then when you're out of the circle or out of the spell, out of the orb, whatever, however you're working your magic, and you notice that you start worrying about, how am I going to get these bills paid, or I'll never get this paid off again. As soon as you notice that, you have already composed a chant, something like, there is no debt in divine mind, therefore I can owe nobody anything. All of these apparent debts are now wiped clean, and all is well. Something like that. Something that you've determined in advance. You've made sure to write it down, and you're going to just anytime something negative around that topic comes up in your mind, you're going to combat it with that chant, with that affirmation, or with that idea. For some of these spells, you're going to want to come back and repeat it, maybe 3 days or 5 days or 7 days or 9 days, or maybe you'll do a whole 14 days or something like that on it. But I would determine it in advance, or say I'm going to keep repeating this spell until I have a sense of peace about it, until I notice that I have a calm assurance that all is going to happen according to my desires, and then I won't cast anymore. So we can either determine in advance how many days you want this spell to be, and a lot of times you can do that based on maybe some planetary correspondences. If you're doing a lunar spell, you might want to do 9 days. If you're doing a solar spell, you might want to do 6 days. If you're doing a Saturnian spell, you might want to do 3 days. Or you might want to do a full waxing phase, or you might want to even do a full lunar phase. You might want to do 2 weeks of waning work on this topic, and 2 weeks of waxing work on this topic. The sky's the limit, but just have those parameters set clearly before you start. And like I said, maybe the parameters are that I'm just going to keep doing this until I feel better about it. And that's a fine thing, as long as you know that that's what it is, and it's not just sort of open-ended and you're just doing whatever. So once you've completed that spell according to the parameters that you've agreed upon, then it's important, like I said before, that you forget it, that you leave it alone, that you let it do its work, and don't keep casting spells on the same topic again and again and again. Let it go. If you keep casting spells on the same topic and you haven't let it go, you're just telling your deep mind, none of this works. It didn't work. Let me try something else, but I know that won't work too, because otherwise, why would I have to try it? Everything I try doesn't work. That's what you're telling your deep mind if you keep doing another one, and then another one, and then another one. No, you just have that calm assurance that all is going well, that you're doing everything, that you're doing and having everything that you desire in regards to this. And that's why when I like that magic list technique, and I talk about this probably too much, but if you have a perpetual list of three items that you want to eliminate from your life and 3 items that you want to create in your life, and every time one of those items is achieved, you cross it off and replace it with a new item, then you always have options. So rather than going back and I'm like, oh, maybe I better do another debt spell. No, I did the debt spell. Now I'm on to this one, and now I'm on to this one, and now I'm on to this one. And then it keeps your mind focused. It keeps it anchored on success. And that way you're not inadvertently undoing all the good that you're doing by overdoing your spell work. I see that probably more than anything with magic, is people want to do another thing, and then another thing, and then another thing, and can I do this, and can I mix these, and how many things can I mix up together? And it's like, they don't get that what they're doing when you do too much is that you're telling your deep mind, this isn't working. So be really, really careful of that. Just keep a light touch, one thing at a time. Once you've done that spell, stop doing that spell. Stop doing any spells like it. Know that it's working and move on to the next thing. Okay, so that's basically the whole thing. A trance state, the ability to conjure a vision of what you want, the ability to conjure the emotion of what you want, the ability to consolidate it all into a focal point, to consolidate or concentrate that into an energy ball or a thought form is really what that is, and then allowing it to releasing that thought form to do its work, and knowing, having that faith that it is occurring. Faith, imagination, will, and secrecy. And secrecy is the one that a lot of people don't understand and maybe screw up on. And that is, once it's done, you keep your mouth shut. You don't tell everybody about the spell you just cast. You don't tell everybody about the thing that you're working on. You just button your lip. Because remember, that which we keep secret is what we are attempting to make sacred. The only kind of secrets you want to keep are beautiful, sacred secrets, things that are fantastic. Anything that is shame-based, you want to let go. You don't want to keep a shame-based secret. We'll talk about that in a different lecture. But keep your spells silent. Keep silent about your spells. Keep them to yourself. Once they occur, everybody will already know that you're a success, and you won't have to talk about it. But you don't have to talk about how you did it through magic. You don't have to talk about how amazing you are at your magic. You don't have to talk about your magic to anybody at all. In fact, if you don't, you're going to be better off. Now, that's not saying that you can't get the support and things that you need, like in the forums and classes and things like that. Absolutely. I'm just talking about out and about as a general rule. You don't talk about what you're doing. You don't talk about your spells. You keep them sacred. You keep them silent, and that gives them power. And that's all there is to it. That's all there is to it. And I have a guided meditation called Cast Your Own Spell, which takes you through the entire process in about 10 minutes. So it's pretty easy. All you have to do is listen to the meditation for 10 minutes in a place that you can be by yourself and do your best to apply all of the principles. Thank you so much for working with me today. I adore you. Until next time, blessed be.